Hi, my name is Meg, and you're watching You Can Ask That. Here's our panel talking about partying and going out. So moving on to our first question that's come through the question box. I'm nervous about going to a music festival with my diabetes. What things should I bring and what should I be prepared for?
It's on you.
All right.
Party boy Kyle.
Prepare for the worst and expect the best. So you're going into a music festival. It's a pretty unruly environment. When we were actually talking about this, we kind of thought maybe identifying the St. John's tent people and just going, hey, I'm a diabetic and this might happen. And you can also use their facilities to change pump supplies and things like that. But yeah, really, it's on you. So you need to make sure you can look after yourself in that scenario. Make sure you've got enough insulin. Make sure you've got supplies.
Hypo food that you can carry with you. That's always the one I forget. And then you're trying to go through and try and get an orange juice or a Coke from the bar, and it's just a nightmare.
Yeah, the lines are way too long.
Are really fashionable now.
Yeah,
actually jelly beans in them. The St. John's tents are the first aid tents for those of you who don't know. And also, like, I was just thinking, how would you try to keep your insulin cool at a music event, like music festival event?
I don't know if I would.
Yeah.
like you're only there for a couple of days. As long as it's not 45 degrees, just make sure it's in like a cool place. Don't leave it out in the middle of like on the top of your car, and you'll be fine.
Beautiful, very sound advice.
Noted.
At a party, the next question, at a party where everyone is getting drunk, how can I be involved and drink safely?
Okay. I guess, as Kyle said before, it's just having a person just to let them know this is like drunk. If you end up having a little bit too much, it can look like you're hypo, so just having your friends know the signs is really great. What else do you guys think?
Yeah, so you can't make the assumption always that the staff at a bar might understand your situation, so it's always better to be safe in those situations. I think going into a bar, preferably if you are going to talk to staff about your diabetes or the fact that if you have a hypoglycemic, event or low blood sugar level, make sure that you're doing it when you're already sober, I would say. Because
you don't want to be drunk and also hypo.
Yeah.
That's probably not a great mix. I think as well, like I found at bars, we're talking bars, like house parties will come later, but bars, people tend to be really forgiving. If you're kind of like, I'm sorry, I'm diabetic, I need a Coke, people just kind of move and they'll do it really quickly. So please don't be afraid of playing that card, because that's the card that you can play and you need it. So yeah. What do you reckon, Kyle?
I think people will be accommodating to you, but yeah,
it's really the advice that you get at school and you get from other people. Like, just don't be stupid about it. There's lots of reading that you can do on how alcohol can affect your blood sugar levels. My biggest tip would be to make sure that before you go to bed, you have something to eat. Really make sure that you have something to eat. It is trial by error, so unfortunately you do have to be careful. That is also a great thing to do. You don't
you definitely can party and you can drink. Don't be like you can't. It's just be mindful of what your body's doing, sort of listen to what's happening, and when you are drunk it changes those signs. You might feel different ways, so it's a personal thing for everyone. It's different for everyone,
trial by error,
and depends on what you're doing that night. Like, if you're going to be drinking and then also dancing really hard at that party, you might think to yourself, okay,
that's where all my hypos have come from.
And it might be something that you run a little bit higher that night. Like, that's something that I've done just for some short-term safety,
I feel
and then I correct as
like,
I go later.
100%.
Yeah, and that kind of also relates to this next question, which is about being nervous at parties and at nightclubs. And I think that's something we can all relate to, is feeling nervous about going to parties. Like, I don't live with diabetes, but I know I've been really nervous going out with friends sometimes. Do you have any tips about dealing with that?
Just nervous in general?
Yeah.
I think maybe we all think a little bit like no one's really gone out much in the last year, so everyone's
feeling a bit nervous.
Everyone's in that same rickety boat. trying to plug the holes and just make
Yeah.
it across the other side of the room. And
You just do you. If you need to leave, if you don't like it anymore, like
Yeah.
you just,
if people aren't digging who you are, you're probably at the wrong party.
100%.
And just be yourself.
And you know what? If it's the diabetes thing that's making you nervous and not the whole pandemic thing, I like to be over prepared. I know that because I was diagnosed 18, like peak partying time, and I would just over prepare. So like my bag that I took to stuff was like this big, just in case. And that kind of tended to alleviate my anxiety a little bit, just so I knew that if something happened, that I had like the stuff there if I needed it. And then if bouncers kind of give you a hard time, you can open it up and be like, I literally have syringes in here. Like I've got jelly beans, I've got this, I've got that. I found that was quite calming for me personally.
Yeah, awesome. So we've had another question come through. And it's just asking about your experience. Have you been nervous drinking with condition like type 1 diabetes? Can you tell us about a time you felt nervous?
I can think of one time. It wasn't necessarily to do with alcohol, but it was to do with going out on a night. So I was wearing a dress and I didn't particularly feel like wearing my pump that night. So I used an insulin pump and it just didn't fit the outfit that day for me. Yeah. So I decided to be flexible and I used my syringes. So I went into and now I reflect on it, it was probably a poor story, and that's why I'm sharing it with you so you can learn from my mistakes. So I went to the club's bathroom and decided to inject my insulin in there because I thought, hey, it's at least away from the crowds. Now that I look back at it, one, I got pulled aside from the bouncer for injecting a substance in me in a bathroom. And secondly, it probably wasn't a very hygienic place for me to do it.
No.
So I think maybe later on I got really nervous from those experiences saying like, hey, can I go out on a night out and use pens, or do I just have to keep my pump on me and find awkward ways to get to it underneath the dress or whatever it might have been? And from there, I kind of try to help myself by like planning a little bit more before I go out. And it might be that I just talk to some bar staff and say, hey, is there like an extra little room I can quickly pop into or something like that, just to make me feel as prepared as much as I can. Yeah.
I felt nervous when I left school. I did a whole year of traveling and working overseas, and I remember feeling really nervous because all of my friends that I was with were also 18 and 19, and they were like pushing their boundaries and trying all these different things, and like I was as well, but there was always an extra little bit of nervousness, like what if something happens to me? What if I accidentally drink too much, or I take something I don't want to take? And I've got type 1 diabetes in this foreign country, half the time I didn't speak the language. That was really nerve-wracking. But again, I think the way that I sort of pushed through that was having really good friends I'd just be like, can you please just keep those fruit pastels on you? And being prepared. And I also had this really cute medical ID bracelet I wore everywhere, which kind of gave me a little bit more of a sense of like, okay, like, yeah, I'm all right.
Yeah, my nerves were very limited only because I experienced and grew up drinking in a safe environment. My friend's mum's house, not my own mum's house. But yeah, that kind of gave me the opportunity to test my limits without being in a public space. And then when it came time to go out and do all of that, I kind of knew what my reactions might be to things, so it felt less alien, and it was just a little less worrying because I kind of had already put my toe in the water and sort of knew what to expect from a night out and how I might feel.
Yeah.
And if you can, practicing at home, I think would be fantastic if your parents are on board on that too.
You just don't want to have your first time pushing the boundaries when you're out by yourself with no one you know.
Yeah. It's an experiment.
Alcohol is by no means good for you.
No.
So, it's a thing. It's going to be a good thing or a bad thing for some people, but yeah.
Yeah. Thanks for watching. If you want to hear more from Georgie, Loui and Kyle, check out the Diabetes Victoria YouTube channel.